Hello, this is Monday morning, November 5th. Welcome back to the History 202 class. Last week, we had talked quite a bit about the 1950s, or at least you had done a lot of reading on it, and then the discussions, which I really think that we need to start refocusing on. This week, the discussion is going to be based around the 1964 Atlantic City Democratic National Convention choices. We have four choices for this, but last week it was just a straightforward discussion, and only a few people participated, and I need to see the participation getting back up. You all are doing very well getting the exams done, but the exams are only a chunk of your grade. The discussions are part of it. The weekly assignments are part. This week, the primary source search is due, which is a full 10% of the grade. So if you don't do that, you're starting off at a 90. So please make sure that you're keeping up with that. The 1950s discussion was centered around sort of domestic ideas of the 1950s. There was a short reading that you could do to participate with that. I think the 50s are an interesting transition time in the United States. It's during the Eisenhower administration and coming off of World War II and the rationing that had been involved with that, and the weak economic issues based on the fact that we were at war. The 50s are interesting in that we see the sort of the first part of American what's going to become the long economy, the long boom economy. Americans are now able to participate in this new type of economy. They're spending all that money. The economy is going to roar. The growth that was unimaginable prior to World War II, and when it ends in the late 60s, early 70s, we haven't matched that growth since. So interesting questions are asked in terms of economics about whether or not that is a sustainable goal, even, much less something that's achievable over the long term. It is also the start of the early Cold War. We can see that the United States and the Soviet Union are moving into this tense standoff between each other, especially dealing with nuclear weapons, but it's also in other areas. We're trying to avoid any direct conflicts. There's issues like the Suez Canal crisis. There are issues over things like what to do with Berlin, and there's a lot of tension in the world as a result of these two superpowers going head to head, and that continues well into the 60s. This week, I want to focus on the 1960s and largely civil rights. Now, in the past, the Hurricane Florence kind of messed it up. The goal was for us to do some simulations and role-playing activities. Because of the sensitive nature of this particular topic, I don't want to do a role-play, but I want to take a look at the civil rights movement in a way that usually is not the traditional way of examining civil rights, and that's by taking a look at the Democratic National Convention. And there's four different options here, four different choices for us to look at, and I just want to be clear that we're not doing a role-play this time. But what we are doing is looking at the civil rights movement, potential backlashes to that civil rights movement, and how that all interplays in the Democratic National Convention of the 1964 in Atlantic City. There's a trope, there's an argument about Democrats and Republicans, and there's big fights about who really supported civil rights. And I think it's important to note that it's in the 1960s and 70s that we see a shift in the platforms of the parties. And it doesn't come without a lot of political tension. And we can see that tension playing out here in the Atlantic City National Convention. You will need to read the background essay in order to do this activity. And this is the first of a 3-week process, which will end up leading to a paper that you're going to write. This week I want you to get into small groups through the discussion forum and read the background essay. You'll need to know the acronyms. MFDP is the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, which is a pro-civil rights one. SNCC, which is SNCC, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. Those are important. When you get into the perspectives, we're going to be doing it based on the first letter of your first name. So my first name is Adam, so I would be looking and examining perspective 1, the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party perspective. Again, it's not role-playing. I don't want you to pretend that you're part of this group But what I want you to do is think about what's at stake for the assigned group. What's at stake for the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party? Or what's at stake for the National NAACP? What did your assigned group want for the future of the civil rights movement? What did your assigned group want for the future of the country? What potential power did your assigned group have over the other groups, if any? And how effective would that power be in these larger political contexts? In these small groups, in this small discussion forum, so for perspective 1, then you will answer these questions and discuss what you think the answers are. Next week, you're going to get in as a whole group and you'll kind of explain the perspectives to each other. So my perspective, I was reading about the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. I'm going to explain that, and then we'll answer questions back and forth from the other perspectives. The primary source search project is due. That you've been working on that for the last 3 weeks. 10 primary sources. If you need an explanation of that, it's down here. The primary source search project. 10 primary sources. I need the citations, and I'm looking for the databases that you pulled them from. So hopefully you have a topic, create a title for the project, locate 10 primary sources, and for each you're going to do this. So you're going to give it a citation, give a link or an explanation of where you found it, and then just really a 1 or 2 sentence summary of the source. I just want to see that you kind of read through it and make sure it made sense to your topic. This is what it should look like. So you have your citation 1 alphabetically, and then your link and the summary, and then citation 2, which would be alphabetical compared to citation 1, and so on until you have your 10. Again, hopefully you've been working on that the last few weeks. If not, it's due by Sunday. And as always, continue to work on that dialectical journal entry. That's not going to be due until the last week of class, but you do need to make sure that you're continuing on with that project. And if you have any questions, please let me know. And I will be going through and grading the last week's material here shortly, probably the next day or so, which is the dialectical journal reflection paper. I'm always interested to see what connected and you've all made on that. All right, thanks, and I will talk to you soon.